Civil disorder breaks out in China. Mainland China, that is. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. Incredible reports started coming out of China over the weekend. Concerted civil disorder breaking out in at least a dozen cities. The cause? No, it isn't people protesting any grand plan to invade Taiwan. It is the virus that shall remain nameless, and the Chinese government's attempt to stamp it out by main force. Clearly it's not working, or by now the Chinese would have relaxed their policy. They haven't, and now the people have snapped. This has never happened to this degree in China since the Tiananmen Square uprising in 1989. This incident also recalls previous uprising in Warsaw Pact countries. Before we take the deep dive, and especially tell you why the people snapped, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. Be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which reads, "Freedom isn't free." And it isn't. And as we're watching this unfold in China, we have to ask ourselves, how many of us have been complicit in bringing things to such a pass right here in the USA? Just think about it. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click on that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. Reportage on the China uprisings comes from the Beeb and from Just the News. First, some brief background. China employs the most stringent quarantine and other measures in the world in an effort to stamp out the virus that shall remain nameless. The measures include locking people inside their apartments. Despite that, cases of that virus have set all-time records. The flashpoint seems to have come in the city of Urumqi, the capital of the western Xinjiang region. 10 people died in a fire in a mid-rise apartment building. Jack Posobiec shared footage of the fire, and I have a link to his tweet in the description. The official word on the cause of the fire blames an electric outlet extension. Now, you know the kind. You plug something into a regular wall outlet, and now you've got the three times the number of outlets you usually have available. And I'll vouch that misuse of outlet extenders and extension cords is one of the most common causes of building fires worldwide. So I am not suggesting that the authorities or anyone else deliberately set the fire. The issue isn't even how the fire started. The issue is what happened afterward. Apparently it took 3 hours to put the fire out. And when it was all over, 10 people were dead. The next day, protests broke out in Urumqi on the theory that authorities kept people penned or locked in the building. Jack Posobiec tweeted a quoted video from something called the Great Translation Movement, containing what purport to be messages from or about those 10 residents who died. For what it's worth, the authorities deny anything remotely consistent with what those messages suggest. But those same authorities have a problem. In blunt and brutal fact, individual life is notoriously cheap in communist China and always has been in communist countries. It was just as cheap in imperial China, as any historian of the Far East will tell you. So this is where some people say, well, we can't judge Oriental societies by Occidental ethical standards. Well, that's all very well, but here is the big problem. The authorities must have expected the people to accept those deaths as the price of fighting the virus. They were mistaken. By Sunday, reports spoke of protests in Beijing, Nanjing, Shanghai, Chengdu, Xi'an, and Wuhan. Protesters are sounding chants of Xi Jinping step down, Communist Party step down. Several Twitter users, including some blue checkmark accounts, have video that they say came from China. Now, how this video is getting out, no one is doing more than speculate. A user calling himself Wall Street Silver led with video which he posted on Saturday night showing people lining up to take tests for the virus and showing what looks like a man in a white hazmat suit carrying an automatic weapon. I have a link to it in the description. Play it for yourselves. Whoever this person is isn't even waving that gun around. He's just carrying it in his right hand. Well, about 15 hours later, another user said the weapon it showed was a replica. I have a link in the description to that tweet also. It goes into why he thinks it's a replica. Now, understand this. That didn't mean that user doubted the account. The Chinese Communist Party, he said, do not normally issue deadly weapons to local police. So if someone is pretending to be heavily armed, that means, and I quote, police in China are struggling to keep control, close quote. Someone else said that the people looking at this guy in the hazmat suit toting a gun, a replica, whatever it was, didn't know it was a replica. So the one saying it was a replica said, well, he never said anyone did know. And he could be correct. You get the same answer either way. The authorities, somewhere along the line, are plenty worried. But Mr. Wall Street Silver had more, beginning with a tweet of protesters in Langshu dismantling virus testing booths. I have a link to that in the description. It's amazing what a crowd of people can do, isn't it? Other users shared more video, and I have links to 3 more tweets with this kind of video. Now we have a hazmat-suited man welding an outside door shut, CCP officers responding to protests in Chengdu, and another street protest in Beijing. Now, in the most ironic twist yet, the Washington Post seems to have condemned the China lockdown policy. The controversial commentator Taylor Lorenz then condemned the Post, even though she's on their payroll, according to the Daily Mail. She defended lockdowns as necessary because, she alleged, no one builds natural immunity to this particular virus. Well, that didn't go over very well. Jack Posobiec has the most comprehensive coverage thus far on his Twitter account. In addition to any tweets I've already mentioned, I have a long list of 24 tweets and retweets by him, sharing video or just his thoughts. Before I describe this sample, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting gold and silver and other precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. Now, let's get into what Jack Posobiec shared. First up, 5 tweets with video of night protest in Shanghai. One of them quotes a Chinese girl shouting back at police. Translation, "You're the police. Didn't you say you would serve for the people?" End of translation. And some of the footage is rougher than others. Apparently the police over there can be brutal. Then we have one tweet each from Hunan, and Xi'an. Another video out of Shanghai, and then a really interesting video from Wuhan. We see people tearing down barricades and shouting, "It started in Wuhan and it ends in Wuhan." The first case of the virus that shall remain nameless was identified in Wuhan, don't forget. Moving right along, we have 4 still pictures before a Uyghur temple. Then another one from Wuhan. Now this time a bird's eye view showing people breaking down a barricade that was hemming in the residential district. And then Jack delivers a 3-minute message describing what's happening in China and why he thinks it's happening. The protests, he says, are happening in every major city in China at all 4 points of the compass. Then he blames he blames on 3 months of their zero virus strategy and the lockdowns that resulted from it. He even suggested the local communist authorities were competing with one another as to who could crack down the hardest. And then the fire, which I've already described. That, he said, was the spark. And it turns out the people are chanting, "Take down the CCP, take down Xi Jinping." That's what I call alimentary fortitude, or just plain white out, we've got nothing to lose, who gives an unripe fig anger. And then Jack points out something really scathing. He says, quote, "There has been no response from anyone in the Biden administration despite the fact that the protests in Shanghai are taking place right outside the United States consulate. Are you foxtrotting kidding me?" Jack goes on. He wonders whether Anthony Fauci or the Democrats have said anything about it. But his biggest fire he reserves for legacy media outlets and anyone in favor of lockdowns in this country. Apparently, they're decrying the situation in China, the fire and all the rest of it, but since they were for lockdowns too, their protests ring hollow, and he's calling them on it. Justin Trudeau comes in for especially withering criticism, considering how he, Trudeau, handled the Freedom Convoy in his country. Then Jack Posobiec asks, how long before CNN, the New York Times, and the Washington Post attacked the Chinese protesters as anti-science? Next, 2 videos showing that this protest movement already has a catchy name, the White Paper Revolution. White paper to protest the censorship that is part of Chinese life. Then an especially foreboding video showing riot control vehicles rumbling into Shanghai, where apparently the worst of it is taking place. Jack reminds everybody what happened at Tiananmen Square in 1989. For 7 weeks, people filled that square until the regime sent the tanks in. Then Jack sarcastically observes that you aren't seeing celebrities or athletes supporting the protesters. Finally, he quotes this poem that seems to be making the rounds in China. Quote, "A small summary of people in different cities. People in Beijing are singing farewell. The people of Nanjing turned on the lights of their phones. Shanghai people took out flowers and bought out alpacas. The people of Guangzhou are singing the sea and sky. Dali people playing guitar. Chongqing people are giving a speech. People in Changsha hold a white paper. We are together." Close quote. Signed, anonymous contribution. Now, in case none of you figured it out, I turned 65 this Thanksgiving Day. So I remember a few uprisings in communist lands, not just Tiananmen Square. Now, the Hungarian revolt might have been before my time, but I definitely remember reading about and watching the Prague Spring in 1968 and how that played out. In closing, I'll just say this. Xi Jinping has a serious decision to make. This protest movement shows weakness within the Middle Kingdom. That's the last thing they wanted to project at a time when they were running an operation to take over the world. The World Economic Forum isn't the only world-conquering movement out there. Don't forget China, with its Belt and Road Initiative, trying to revive the Silk Road, and by all accounts, running their men in Washington, meaning President Joe Biden. In short, they hope to win by intimidation, and right now, they don't look so intimidating. And anyone now doing business in China needs to reevaluate that. That includes Tesla with its Shanghai factory, and the Walt Disney Company, which recently let authorities lock all the guests inside one of their theme parks in China. And any other company who commissions things to be made in China. All the more reason why things need to be made in the USA once again. Link in the description to the article, to the 2 tweets by Jack Posobiec about the fire in Urumqi, the debate on Twitter about the man in the hazmat suit carrying what looks like a gun but could be a replica, to 4 separate videos showing protests in various places, to Jack Posobiec's 24 tweets and retweets, to my Declaration of Truth Twitter account, and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlives.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel and links to earlier videos about happenings in or related to China and the censorship regime in this country. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.